Today, people come out all the time, young people. I want people to understand, what was it like 40 years ago or 50 years ago? It was bizarre and it was horrible because I couldn't be who I wanted to be. And I want people to know about that. I want them to know that the world really has changed. It's changed in a huge way. I'm gay, and I'm happily married to the man who I've lived with and loved for 21 years. Today, I live a life that was unexpected. Once, I thought that this life was not going to be available to me. The authentic life. And that began a long and very difficult journey. And it's that journey that I want to share with you tonight. I've known I was different since I was 6 or 7. In the early years, I didn't know why I felt the way I did. I just knew I was different. But when I entered puberty, I knew what the difference was. I was attracted to boys, not girls. I thought, well, maybe this is just a phase, and I'll outgrow it. But when I was 12, I had my first crush on another boy, my best friend. The experience was electric. To know what it was like to love another person in the same sex. It was clear to me that this was not going to be a phase I was outgrowing. This was the real thing. I remember thinking, but what's so bad about loving somebody? And then I remembered the newspaper accounts of what happens when gay men are honest about themselves. They're beaten up. They're killed. They're fired from their jobs. They're thrown out from where they live. And most unbelievably, parents throw their gay kids out on the street. So I embarked upon the great cover-up. I learned how to play the straight role. I watched my friends to understand what was going to be acceptable. When boys started to notice girls, I took that as my cue to pretend that I was attracted to girls as well. I knew all the right things to say to my guy friends when we bragged about our conquest. Of course, they were silly lies anyway. We talked about how masculine we were. I played varsity basketball to prove how masculine I was. I dated girls. I went steady with some. Also, I picked up all of the taunts we used when we talked about gays. Homo, queer, faggot. I became the complete straight guy. I hated the phony life I was living. But I simply didn't have the courage to be truthful about who I was. I knew the consequences of being truthful would tear my life apart, both physically and emotionally. I knew I was living a lie. I didn't feel real unless I was with gay people. I remember the first time I went to a gay club. I opened the door and walked in to find men dancing and laughing and enjoying themselves, being who they really were, without shame without fear. And I had this intense sense of joy because for a little while I could be who I really was. And I remember how hard I cried when I closed that door and then walked outside back to the straight life. My life moved on. After high school graduation, there was a university, and then the Navy. After the Navy, I was hired by a large corporation that was very conservative. So playing the straight role was even more important for me if I was going to be successful. The years passed. Living my life seemed even more difficult. I hadn't yet realized that changing the way I was living my life just required a simple question. I've always been a man of faith. But my approach to faith in those days was to pray for God to make me straight. And I prayed that way for days and years. Not surprisingly, those prayers were never answered. One night, in desperation, I simply said, "God, what is your will?" And the answer came back immediately. I love you just the way you are. Now go live your life honestly. I was stunned. This was the way God wanted me to live. God didn't want me to live a lie. God meant me to be the man He had created, a gay man. I didn't have to live the lie that had consumed my life so long. Finally, people would know me. It's difficult to adequately describe what saying "I am gay" meant to me when I talked. First to my family, then my friends and others. I didn't try to persuade or convince. I was simply honest about who I was. For some, acceptance was immediate, while others needed some time to assimilate what I'd said to them. But in almost all of those circumstances, I found acceptance, and love and support. I was through living the lie, and I was finished with allowing other people to define my life. Coming out the first time was a long and arduous journey, but I come out time and time again. When I share my truth with others, just the way I've shared my truth with you tonight. And now I feel a sense of pride and joy about the authentic life that I live when I say, "I am gay."